In this episode of The Method, we are diving into the topic of world building, Bex.
Yeah, we are. I mean, how do you start in games? How do they decide how many buildings to put in or what creatures sound like? But mostly, how do I get to feel so immersed, even though really, I'm just sat on the sofa with a controller?
All really good questions, and lucky for you guys, we've lined up some experts to speak to and get some answers. Just got to go meet them now.
Oh yeah, that's why we're out here in the open world.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Where to first?
Pub.
Ooh.
To find out how immersive gaming worlds are created, we'll be speaking to the teams behind the deliciously gritty Atomfall, the ever-expanding Sea of Thieves,
The Sea of Thieves is a real place.
and one of last year's best indie horror games, Still Wakes the Deep.
Yeah, I just photographed my breakfast.
And what better way to start off our immersion journey than catching up with Rebellion's head of design, Ben Fisher, over a pint.
This is a real battle. Oh, okay. I'm happy with that.
Cheers. New career for me started too. Atomfall Ale's not bad.
Atomfall Ale indeed. Now, Ben,
Yes.
speaking of Atomfall, I would love to know how the heck you get started building a world like the game of Atomfall.
So for Atomfall, we started by saying we've not done a game like an RPG adventure before, so we're going to need conversation systems for characters, we're going to need an inventory, a save system that lets you travel between locations and keep your backpack and stuff like that. So there's a load of kind of like fundamentals you have to build first. The trigger point was Jason Kingsley, one of the founders and owners of Rebellion, noticed that there's a lot of games set in kind of post-apocalyptic atomic quarantine zones, but there wasn't one based around the Windscale fire, which is the first major nuclear disaster in the world. So like the initial trigger was to ask, what would that game look like? We also had to figure out how to build locations that felt like the Lake District. So there's a load of kind of workflow stuff you have to figure out at the same time. Lots of asking like what happens if and would it be cool if?
I was in the middle of, I think it was the Yorkshire Dales, and weirdly there are occasionally phone boxes in parts of England where you wouldn't expect them. And as I walked past it, it rang. It was completely...
Stop it! Did you do that on purpose? You've got a button somewhere.
Tell him to call back later.
Did you answer it? Hello? Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong number. Judge Dredd is next door. No. Okay, sorry. Bye. Was it a wrong number?
So you were gonna?
I was going to answer because I thought, yeah, maybe.
You have to.
Maybe it's somebody who needs my help, and I'm thinking, hang on, I'm the one in the middle of nowhere, and somebody's on the other end of a phone line. So why would they need help from me? But it was the spark. It was a little spark. It was like, that's really spooky.
Yeah.
And slightly unnerving. So for the rest of the day, I was thinking, am I being followed? Is something weird going on here? And of course, nothing happened. But it stuck with me, and I just thought that's a really interesting place for the beginnings of a story.
We wanted to find out what inspires game designers to create all sorts of gaming worlds, from the realistic to the totally obscure, so I went to Rare to speak to the team about the inspiration behind the world of Sea of Thieves.
Why did you even start with a pirate game in the first place? Does that feel like an innately immersive experience?
When we started the Sea of Thieves journey, the game wasn't even a pirate game. It started with this core vision of players creating stories together, giving players this immersive shared world, giving them this set of tools that when they encountered other players in that world, there'd be this explosion of possibilities and unscripted gameplay. That when we thought about what is the right theme, what is the right wrapper to amplify that, to supercharge the creativity we wanted to see from our players, we thought pirates was the perfect wrapper for that, because it's that idea of you and your friends, you're in this perilous world, You're on a ship, you're manning the sails together, someone's on the helm, someone's on the map table, but you're in a world where every ship on the horizon could potentially be another crew of real players having their own adventure.
Could be a threat, could be some allies.
It could be some friends, exactly. It could be an alliance. It could be someone that means your harm wants to take your treasure from you. That's how we bring it to life with the theme of pirates, and that's what inspires players' creativity. A lot of us kind of role-play pirates in the playground. So it was
a pop-up pirate straight away.
a pop-up pirate. What a classic game. But it was less about dry historical pirates. It was more about the kind of fantasy pirates that you'd expect when you think of some of the famous rides out there, some of the famous movies out there. So it was very much this idea of this relatable pirate world, but then adding this kind of fantastical element where you'd have these nautical legends that have come to life. But one of the key things was this idea that the Sea of Thieves is in the crease of a map. So this idea that all of the characters, including the players in this world, have crossed the threshold through the Devil's Shroud. There's this approach called the Wheel of Emotions, and this is something we adopted right from the start of our prototype, and it carried forward right into our world building. And this was the idea that when you play Sea of Thieves, you should feel different emotions. You know, you should feel happiness when the wind catches your sails, sadness when your ship sinks below the waves, or you end up on the ferry.
All too relatable, honestly.
Well,
I get that one a lot when I'm playing it.
And that's the point. Everyone's got their own Sea of Thieves story because the game brings out all these different emotions. In many ways, Sea of Thieves is like it's like the chocolate factory from Charleyy and the Chocolate Factory.
What, super hazardous.
Super hazardous, but it's like a morality test.
Oh, well, it's a lovely day out here. A stark contrast from maybe some of the northern weather we're used to.
Aye, I mean, to be honest with you, when I heard we were doing this thing, I was picturing getting blown off the end of the pier there. It was absolutely horrible earlier, but it's quite nice.
It was beautiful. Almost a bit too bright, to be honest, but yeah.
When Dan Pinchbeck, the creative director of the Still Wakes the Deep, when he was pitching the idea to the whole team, it's the same way with any kind of project today. If you can build the right atmosphere right away, for even just an initial concept video or a pitch, but especially to the team, if they can see it like right away and feel it and hear it, the more visceral you can get that, the closer you can get that, it's much easier that everybody's tuned in. You know, it was handy that I'm from the 70s. And and Dan was from the 70s, and Nick, the tech directors, we were all kind of born around a bit then. So we've got that sense memory to know when something's wrong or right. Characters that we're familiar with, where you can go, they wouldn't have worn that. There's definitely something as well about the 70s but how people dressed, how people looked, like how that kind of thin layer of blue smoke that kind of sat in the middle of your room because everybody smoked at the time, that kind of feeling, how brown everything was, like in terms of decor. It's really visceral. Even though the game itself, Still Wakes the Deep, was set remotely on an oil rig, you have to kind of know what Glasgow and all that was like and what the city life was like because the guys are bringing that, the crew are bringing that with them. If all that feels authentic and all the details are right, that's the door open even wider for the player to step in,
You've got this conflict in Still Wakes the Deep of something's really realistic, but also you got this crazy supernatural side. Do you think things as simple as adding real life photos, that makes a big difference to immersion for people?
Definitely. I think we really needed to ground the experience first and make people believe in this world before we had that sort of pulling the rug from underneath your feet and taking you on the kind of more transcendental, strange journey that it develops into later on.
Where did you start in the scenes when you're building the concept art for it?
Weirdly, a lot of this stuff, like the concepts for these corridors, looked like the building we were in at the time.
Really?
It looked like the Unison building. Yeah, they just, kind of drabby, like corridors. I kind of took the mick out of the concept artist at the time, saying, "Have you just been drawing the corridors?"
It was an absolute goldmine when we discovered BP have a big archive library of footage. So, because there's this big explosion in North Sea oil in the 70s, they actually did quite a lot of documentaries and filming it and promoting it. So we actually went through, watched loads of videos and took screenshots and built up big Miro boards, and all the way down to the detail, like what does that light fixture, what would that light fixture be? And we'd find a picture of the light fixture and then try and find out what model it was and copy it.
Where do you start with concepting the art style of a game that you want to be really immersive for players?
Right at the start, you have to decide what kind of world you want players to experience. Is it adventurous? Is it charming? For Sea of Thieves, it was about creating a pirate world that had adventure built into everything that we were doing. So from the rocks to the sea to the ships themselves, everything needed to have this spirit of adventure woven into the visual design of them.
How do you make a rock adventurous?
Well, so there are 3 areas in the Sea of Thieves. So we've got like the Sea of Plenty, the wilds, and all of the different areas. All of the rocks within those areas are actually designed to invoke a feeling. So for example, in the wilds, everything's pointy and angular and feels dangerous, whereas in Plenty, the rocks are round and smooth. So they make it feel like you'd want to holiday there versus somewhere where you go in to have a dangerous adventure.
How do you know that you've got it just right to fit this game? And then how do you then make it immersive?
You mentioned immersive, so that it's that consistent rule set. So when you step into that world, there's going to be nothing that takes you out of the moment. Everything feels like it naturally all fits together. But how we come up with that, it's a big collaborative effort. So from our 3D artists, from VFX artists, animators, we all come together and we've got this feeling we want to come across, and then work with each department and work out how do you represent adventure in an animation or adventure in VFX? How do you make that all tie together?
I've seen loads of books with skulls in it. I've been to museums where I've seen skulls. They don't look like that. So how do you convince me that, yeah, that is a skull without treading far enough away from your decided art style?
Okay, so the art style in Sea of Thieves, we often treat it as a world with stories, and that came up with a rule around wonky. Like
wonky.
Worn and wonky. So wear and tear. So you can see around me, there's lots of different objects around. They either feature dinks and chips within this tankard here, or for instance, they've got like a wonky, if you look at the frame on the wall there, it's all askew. It's nothing straight. And the reason why Sea of Thieves is its own contained world. So pirates come to it and then they're kind of trapped in Sea of Thieves. So everything is just remade and reused within that world. So everything gets this wonky feel. And then for a skull, for example, it's how do you apply that feeling to that skull so it has this character. So that wonky feeling goes into our pirates that's slightly askew, to the ships themselves, where you walk down the steps, it's like wear and tear on the steps. And then even the islands where they've got marks of history where people have been before. So that sense of history and character is woven through all of those areas.
We have like a shared library of resources we use for different types of props and whatever. But obviously for Sniper Elite, most of the time it's not set in the UK, it's set in France or something. And we needed Lake District rocks, Lake District mossy, dry stone walls, like all those little bits that we could do. So we were like, let's build up our library of the right kind of content. A funny thing you have to do though in games is you might find a really cool rock, like a big boulder or something, and you're like, oh, that looks amazing. But if it's too distinctive, you can only use it once. So we wanted the most generic, like, give me the most generic type asset I would see everyone.
The most forgettable rocks,
And then you fill up your world with those, and then you know that you're gonna do the special moments here and there. For our game, we were looking at a lot of reference from the Lake District and went up there and did a lot of recce trips and photogrammetry and things like that. Photogrammetry is a technique where you basically can take photos all around an object and kind of reconstruct it into an actual 3D asset. It is a great way to like ground the game in realism because you'll get this content that is from reality.
Ryan told us that photogrammetry, saying it right? Yeah, nailed it, is super important for just getting the level of detail that the team needs to immerse players into their games. But how do you actually do it?
So if you've got like a cup or a mug or a table, you'll just go all the way around at every angle, trying to capture as much photo data as possible.
So for our characters, we scan them twice, once with photogrammetry, with a camera, and we also do it with a laser scanner. So even distance, and then you move up and down Once you're done,
I feel like I'm on the red carpet.
bit to the side.
Why do I keep looking at it?
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Okay, you tell me where to point. Flipping out, that's heavy.
Yeah.
Please don't drop
Oh, wait. No, joking. Sorry, guys. You're doing it a lot faster than I did.
Yeah, we usually end up with around 1,000 images for a mannequin like this.
1,000?
Yeah.
It sounds quite long, but what's the most difficult bit?
Oh, I'd say the most difficult thing that we had for Atomfall specifically was finding the perfect weather conditions.
Oh,
because
In Britain? God, yeah.
so we went in November, but it can't be too wet and it can't be too sunny. So if it's sunny, there'll always be shadows. So that's why we'd want an overcast day, but then we wouldn't want it to be wet because anything shiny is just reflecting light. So that's the most challenging part. That and carrying the kids.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
And they also put me in a cave for like 5 hours to take.
Was that part of the job?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, fine. That's fine then.
It's much simpler.
Whoa.
Point and let it scan. So wait for it to. So as you can see, you can actually see the like the actual mesh already. And if you just start scanning, you can see how it shows.
You're doing it in real time.
Yeah, it's in real time. And then you can see how it already made it. Most of it. This is just a preview, so it will be even higher quality when we actually reconstruct it and do the high poly details on it.
Can I have a go?
Yeah, go for it. So all you have to do is just press the trigger button there.
It's literally got the trigger and the laser. That's so sick.
And hold within the green, and you should be able to keep scanning.
Does it know if I like?
If you move away, it will know. It has a geo
Does it know
sensor.
if I give it some of that as
well?
well?
Yeah, you can go upside down as well. And it will,
I don't know why I'm focusing on a very specific point.
Yeah. There you go.
Why does it go red when I'm that close?
Too close.
Oh, so stay green.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, get his little face.
So handsome. Snatched jawline. I'm going to give you this back before I break it.
It's all right.
It was like that when I found it, promise. So once you've seen all of these pictures you've catalogued, are you just straight into the sketchbook after that? Or is there a bit of time where you kind of need to think and decompress?
We actually brought our concept artist up with us, our first concept.
Clever.
And I said, and he's like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm not going to be doing photography. I'm not building the environment. I said, fill up that sketchbook as we go. So I want both like a photo reference, but I want an artistic interpretation of what it is at the same time. And he did a glorious job. He just had fun, and he just sat down and sketched and sketched and sketched. And we had tons of wonderful little things because he's looking for those things that grabbed him, which helps inform us what might grab a player. And then some of that stuff just bled right back into the game later on as we firmed up areas, or we looked at those concepts alongside some of the photos, then looked at the spaces that the design team had laid out and said, where would this fit?
I get sketching. I'm not good at drawing, but I understand how that mechanically works.
Yep.
But taking that and putting it into a 3D world that someone can actually move through, what happens there?
It's kind of like all things creative. You kind of work in layers, you know.
Okay.
You know, you lay down your drums and you lay your bass and you lay your guitars down or whatever, as if a rock song. We did the same thing artistically. First, we built our terrain out. So we used various techniques for generating terrain. Some was photogrammetry, where we'd capture stuff. Some was procedural approaches, which are kind of like pattern-driven kind of things that can help us kind of sculpt terrain. Some was just hand building. We took photos of ground to get the materials off that. So it's actually from real world, and then plugged it in. And then cool, we got our ground.
I feel like artists will inherently make things smaller and detailed rather than like bigger. So we did start smaller, and then when you play it, you're like, actually it needs to be bigger. I mean, I think we kept saying constantly, make it bigger, and then we kind of kept having to crank it up.
It's also about sometimes knowing when to break away from making it completely realistic, because I remember you made this like block out of the underrig area, and that was so dramatic, and you'd actually pushed it further from what some of the reference was, because there's a difference between what actually feels immersive and realistic in a game when it's all around you versus the real world scale.
Yeah, with that specifically, it was to push how high you want it to feel, how high above the sea you are, and to feel like really terrified. Just thinking a lot about kind of roller coasters or theme park rides and being like, oh God.
When your stomach drops.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to get that sense. And a lot of the time, especially in a first person game, you do have to push it further than you think. It's fun to play with the scale because you know what a real world scale is, but then when you see it in first person, you're like, actually, that looks quite small. So you have to kind of crank it up.
Once you collated all that info and your first day back into the studio, what's the first thing you put to paper?
Okay, so obviously we do lots of concept exploration, lots of visuals for people to go and look at and kind of align on. But the first thing we ever did build was a little diorama of an island, one of our little resource islands. And we had this little island, we put a wheel on it.
Do you mean like a physical diorama?
Yeah, well, no, in the game.
In the game.
So there's a digital little diorama in our engine. It had an infinite sea, so with some suggested islands on the horizon. So the rendering team, they were working on the water at the same time as the character team were working on a character that was standing on there. And it was this little tiny island that is actually in the Sea of Thieves. You can actually find it. It's gone through a few iterations since the early days, but that island does actually exist in the map.
Trying to think if I know which island it is. Can you like point it out for me if we go and check a look at the game? Or
let's go and have a look.
Yeah, sure. Nice.
Okay. This little tiny island here was our first little island which we ever made. But yeah, so this was the first one. It was this
so cute.
it was this tiny island. So it's still there. And yeah, this was the one. And we used to have a parrot that used to fly around it on a loop.
Oh,
so you could see what it'd feel like. And there was actually a jetty here with a pirate on it. But as you can see, the jetty has crumbled over the years, but it's now a nice fishing spot if you want to do some more fishing. But yeah, so this is the tiny little island that started it all.
That's so cool.
Really interesting point just to kind of call out with immersion. You can see one of our clouds that are in the form of a ship.
Yeah.
And that was done purposefully to create markers in the world that players could find, but we didn't want to just put a big arrow. No. It needed to feel natural. It needed to feel part of that lore of what Sea of Thieves is. So,
and it raises more questions for me because instantly I'm like, why the hell is that cloud looking like that? Which is weird. Not used to any cloud like that in my life.
Yeah.
So
that actually came out when we were making. We wanted to make a skull island, but we didn't want to just do what every pirate game does, where it's just a skull. So we came up with the idea of having those clouds kind of emerge out of islands.
How do you even decide, putting that island there and then that one's there and there's something over here, an outpost just there? How do you arrive at the right decision?
Like where everything is placed is very much based around that journey from the outpost. So you start at the outpost and what can you see around you? So we want to give you that promise just over the horizon. So often there's islands set up so there's a nice vantage point that you can see it from another island. And some really is just down from a technical point of these are big islands that you need to get the space between because they're the big expensive islands that if you got to them too quickly would just be big cubes of geometry. Right. So they load in as well. But from a lore point of view or kind of a world building point of view, we wanted to give players islands that were all nice and positive clustered together and islands that had that darker, kind of like tougher side with the wilds. We wanted to give these idea of regions of the world that had their own personality that you could go and explore. So as a player, if you're going out into the world, you can pick what kind of adventure you want.
We could pace the game out and go, right, do you know what, we've been in tight corridors for too long. Let's climb on the outside of the rig.
Get that sense of scale of the massive scale, pipes and
so
stuff.
So you want to kind of play with scale and you go big and then you go small. You go big and you go small. And you do that, we paced it out through the game, through the story. And then it started to go, now mix the big and small together and start twisting it and play with the spaces. So because you revisit certain sections, we were like, what does this same space look like? Upside down or, 90 degrees or filled with water? What if the inside is now exposed to the outside, and started mixing it up towards the end? Unlike other horror games, some ways that they would immerse a player is to go, right, you've broken down in the middle of somewhere and now you're in this unknown place of mystery with unknown characters. And we were like, no, let's flip that and do it. You're in a known place. You've worked here for months. These are all your mates. and you kind of know some of the layout. But when you get fired after the first half hour, that's when we'll pull the rug. You fall into the sea, and then we'll drop you down to the other side of the rig. We talk to rig workers. It's the same as really anywhere. Like, just because you work somewhere, you don't know what the other side is like, because you're not an engineer, so you're not in the engineering department. Right. You know, like you don't work in mud handling, you don't work in administration. You're the electrician, so you do these parts. So when he goes to the other side of it, part of the immersion of the game is the unfamiliarity. I knew that part of the rig. I don't know this part.
I think we were lucky as well with just the nature of what an oil rig is. It's a contrast between really closed off spaces and really big, wide environments. So there are lots of claustrophobic bits where your view is very restricted. And this is a perfect example. You're going from really tight space. Yeah. You've not really seen what's outside. You've just kind of caught glimpses. And then you can have this moment of like discovery. Whether it's like an amazing one or a scary one, but just the contrast between the spaces is inherent with an oil rig already.
Atomfall had been running as a kind of experimental skunkworks project for a while, and we had all the bits and pieces that could make a game and set ourselves a goal for a date to hit alpha. The jigsaw pieces that we had was more like a Metroidvania game.
So most of the time what happens is you get like a dialogue or something that gives you an objective. And before we used to have like one big objective that lasted very long, and then we reduced that to just like breadcrumb bits so that it's easier to follow. Like right now your goal is to get to Rennick's office, but you know you need to go through the deck, and so we tried like very hard with the signs and everything to make it like always, at least in your field of vision, that you're gonna see a sign and you're gonna be able to know where you need to go next.
If you let the player make their way through them, but in a kind of choreographed order, gradually unlocking options over time, it would mean that the sandbox would open slowly, but that we could feed them through a specific narrative. But what we found is that felt too guiding. It felt like other people had had an adventure and that you were picking up the pieces after the fact, I guess. This was when we did our most experimental things. We hit that goal and that would have been a fine game, but it hadn't drilled right into the most interesting stuff that the game was kind of putting in front of us, if that makes sense. So we said, what happens if we just unlock all the doors and let you go wherever you want? What happens if we make all of the quests optional and let you interact with characters or not interact with characters? What if we let you just go straight to the end of the game right from the start, and you would die if you did that? So that was the most open version. So we restructured the game around that, and in the case of something like Atomfall, it's so interconnected. The only way to make those calls is to like run around and get vibes. So what we did is we used that to change from a quest system to a leads system. We don't know what they're going to interact with, so we didn't require them to interact with anything. You have to have a lot of faith that the player will find the most interesting stuff, but that's the coolest version of the game. We said, what happens if you can kill any character? And then we found an answer to that.
You know, Ben, I have brought along a little something I made earlier, which is my game map, if I were to design one. If you could just give me a wee like rating, and also if you want to take this for future reference, that's fine as well.
Yeah, this is Atomfall 2.
There we go. So here's the start.
Right.
And
talk me through it.
Okay, well, you go to the start and then you follow this road, but maybe you don't. And whatever your choices make, because it's all about player choice, am I right?
Yeah.
You either end up at the cozy campfire, or a shortcut brings you to the evil fire.
Right.
That's bad.
So there's a good fire and a bad fire. So that's the choice, right? That's great. So if this was an Atomfall map, you would want them to be morally ambiguous fires, because you don't want the player to feel like there's a goodie and a baddie route.
Fair point.
If you wanted the player to have a sense of freedom, you do want to make sure there's a couple of branches between locations, but you want to make sure the player has a sense of where that branch leads. You don't want to just let them wander wildly into a location and not understand where they're going next. So you want a little bit of foreshadowing. You want them to see minor and major landmarks ahead in the distance.
Got you.
So from the start, if you wanted the player to know that they might head towards an evil fire, you'd want to make sure that was above the tree line so that they could see that they have to go through the trees to get to the evil fire. A lot of the fun in a sandbox map is, we need a better term for this, because I need to describe it every time when I'm talking to level designers as well, is a lot of the fun is like seeing a distant landmark and figuring out a route in your head and then working your way through that route. And you feel clever for kind of following your own plan. So that means you need to build in that kind of overview, that sense of where to lead to next.
All right, then, quick rating out of 10, please. Are we thinking 10?
10 what's the minimum?
10.
10, okay. Well, if it's from 10 to 10, then it's definitely a 10, but I'd say it's a low 10. Sorry.
I'll take that still. Thank you, Ben.
Cheers.
Ben 10.
You think you've nailed down the shape.
Yep.
How do you go about populating it with things to do or trees? Or is there like a rule book or a guide you go to so that it's not overwhelmingly populous or too sparse? Or
Yeah, so we normally try and guide the player around it. So with subtle ways of dressing it. We don't just put trees everywhere that's just confusing. We try and suggest little points of interest. So if you go onto the island, you'd look around, and there's naturally some places to lead you through that world, or there's a little cave on the horizon, or you can see that there's a chest or something over on the side of the beach. So that way it leads you through the world.
And when you're deciding how much to put into the detail, I suppose, the level of detail you're giving, like certain islands maybe.
Sometimes it's based on kind of like the detail level of something. We don't want to make things too noisy. The classic thing I always say is you can make this lovely painting, and then if you take each individual part out of that, but then put the same amount of detail that you would put into the overall painting, and you put it all back together, it's just too much detail. Everything is just fizzy, and it's where you want the player to look.
I like storytelling on lots of layers. Like, you never want one layer of storytelling. You want, what is the thing? And then you want to know, how was this thing used, or who lived here, or what was the purpose of this thing originally?
Yeah.
And now what has happened since? Probably as soon as things went sideways, some people tried to leave. So you see things like bags sitting outside. Right. Now, did those people make it out, or did something else bad happen to them? I don't know.
It paints the picture, and you infer, and you start to build a personal story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, then once you've thought of one little thing like that, you can take it to the next leap. Okay, now no one's lived in that house for a while. Now, I'm living in the house down the road, and my cooker just broke. There's no repair people anymore here. What can I do?
Yeah.
Why don't I go pillage it out of that other house there? So all of a sudden, you're stripping stuff out, and then you'll see debris outside because things were stripped. And you can put in those little grim bits of, the broken crib, the broken cradle, and things like that.
It's the moment you walk in and you think, oh God.
Yeah. Oh, this is bad. And, we don't need to show anything horrific, but it feels unsettling, and that's kind of the fun.
You might go into the corner of a shed and you might see, there's a bottle of beer, a pack of cards, and a notepad with a pen and writing, and then there's a sort of bag next to it, and you think, well, okay, well, somebody's built that scenario. There's a little tiny environmental story there, and that's kind of cool. We've got lots of old comics as collectibles, and those old comics really exist. They're part of our comics archive. So we've scanned in comics that really exist from the 50s and 60s.
that's
You can
cool.
collect them in the game.
The food, the eggs and things, if you go onto the table and look at the food they're eating, that was actually one of our environment artists, Craig. He made himself a fry-up and took photos
Oh my God.
and scanned in.
That's how you get immersion.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we tried it a few different ways, and then all of a sudden I turned it on and I was like, whoa, we've got an amazing looking breakfast. And Craig was like, yeah, I just photographed my breakfast.
It is an amazing looking breakfast.
Yeah.
I really like my gran had cutlery like that. Right, so we're here set in Kaz's little cabin here, and guys, I'm not gonna lie, I spent like way longer than I should have in this room. So I'd love to know, did you guys have a specific input in this cabin?
It had a lot of time, this whole room. I mean, like, this is one of the first things we worked on, and we worked on it for a long time.
This was in our original demo, and we had a block out of this, and we just kept returning to it throughout the project, kind of like every few months doing a redo of it when we had more kind of detail to put into it. And it's really nice because it's actually been through a lot of people's hands. So it's been through loads of designers and artists' hands. So everyone's kind of got a fingerprint on it.
Wow, that's so cute. That's so emotional.
The Christmas card on the desk, that was done by our VFX artist, Child.
That's so sweet. And have they learnt to spell since then? I'm hoping.
And actually, we printed them out and sent them as Christmas cards to people.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I got one of those.
Yeah.
I got that with the Christmas jumper, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sick.
And then
Thanks,
the
guys.
boxing photo, the black and white one, that's actually a creative director on a different project. It's his grandfather.
No way.
And then there's some pictures on the
window.
Like that's my mum holding my cousin, and at the bottom that's me and my sister, and at the top that's John, art director's sister, I think.
That's amazing.
So there's like little details from, even if people weren't directly doing, say, the art or design, there's little artifacts that come from everyone around the team.
That's beautiful.
Here's an example of that immersion of like, there's a little bit of a story around a ship being dragged along the beach. So the environment artists tell these little stories within it, and often put tracks and things like that the player can go and find, but also it's really helpful for points when you're navigating or trying to find a treasure chest, because you can then use that, and including little fish below the waves.
I love it. As soon as the fishing update got added, I made it my life's work to try and get every single one. I think I'm still missing a couple that are in the Devil's Roar, because that is just not a fun place to fish, but that's the challenge of it.
That's hard mode.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a great example of one of the islands which wants you to feel like you're in a like this paradise.
Yeah.
So the pirates are actually going there for chilling out.
You know, getting the lighting in. This scene in particular is like super dark. We wanted the leg. We worked on the scale of this leg and what felt right. We had reference that was like a lot narrower, but we wanted it to feel far bigger and far more of a drop. We spent a long time on the scale of that, but then when you make it initially, it's like completely bright. It's all with white boxes. You have to imagine quite a lot to see what it feels like. But then, when the lighting gets in there, it's a lot better. I feel like once the audio and the music goes in, that's where things really get cranked up. It almost like ties everything together. It's like having a loose ribbon around what you have, and it just pulls it so much tighter.
So Sean, thank you for having me into your cool room of sound. That's sick. Yeah. Can you tell me, first of all, why sound is so important in getting me from my human brain here into the video game brain?
Well, audio plays a very subconscious role in media. So even though most people don't really notice it, that they can feel it. It's ever present. Audio, especially attention to detail in our environment audio, really helps the player, get immersed in the world.
Do you go about your daily life and you're like, that drain pipe sounds good? Do you pick up more?
It's a curse.
Oh, really?
It's a curse. Yeah. My friends are just like, what are you doing rattling that thing? It's like, it just makes such a good noise. This CD rack.
CD rack?
Yeah.
God, you see beauty in everything, don't you, Sean?
Absolutely. This was actually our head of department's CD rack back in college. So it has a bit of history there. This is sort of an iconic horror sound.
Stop, I've got chills.
Want to play with it?
Oh, I do. I really do. Okay, ready? I'm a big horror fan, so. A little bit more questioning tone there.
Yeah.
Did you implement this in Atomfall for like some tension?
Yeah, we did. So one of the core pillars of Atomfall's audio was non-diegetic ambiguity.
And what does
that sounds like just a big heady word, but
yeah,
it's
we can't all
very
work
simple.
in show business. But what does that mean, Sean?
So non-diegetic audio is basically any audio that isn't heard by the characters in a game or a film, but the audience can hear it. Unless there's a radio and it's playing music, and that would be a diegetic because it's in the world, the characters can hear it. So what I mean by non-diegetic ambiguity is that we wanted the player to just sometimes be a little bit unsure, was that part of the environment or was that music? And it's sort of the sort of ties into the aspect of emergent weirdness, which is another core pillar of our audio, because Atomfall is a bit of an odd game in the sense that, you know, everything seems picturesque, but something's off.
Yeah. Emergent weirdness is a great phrase, and I will be stealing that, so thank you.
Cool.
From time to time, I'll probably just do this for tension when it feels right.
Just in conversation, you don't,
Yeah, that's so fun. What would the soundtrack to your life be, do you think?
a lot of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're unrooting some trauma here. Okay, that's good. What other sounds did you make that are in Atomfall in this room?
One of the aspects of the environment audio is that everything's rusted and creaky.
Yes.
Because everything's being overtaken by nature in the quarantine zone, and it's been about 5 years since anyone has, you know, driven a car or anything like that. So we record a lot of
That's a good noise.
just rusty stuff like that. But what's more impressive is if you record that and then, you know, we stretch it. You record it at a high sample rate and then we stretch it. It sounds even more menacing and bigger.
What other bits out in the world that you had to go and take samples of?
For Atomfall specifically, we did a lot of field recordings. So a lot of woodland, a lot of, you know, creeks, rivers flowing. There's underground caves.
That sounds like fun, to be honest. You just sat at the river. Nice.
Yeah.
So once you've got, you know, your recorded noises and you've got your samples and stuff, how do you use sound to guide, like me, where I need to go in the game?
So we have sometimes gusts of wind that will play near, you know, ruins that have like nice loot. Obviously we have the phone ring from the phone booths to draw the player. We have what we call the ferals, and they have, you know, sort of an ambient sound coming from them that you can identify, that you can hear from a distance. You also have their breathing, their grunting. You'll know that they'll be in proximity, so you need to act accordingly.
I actually brought some props from home. I'm not saying that this isn't good enough, but I do have my own stuff. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, I'll go get it. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, Sean. I've got it. This is my colleague and co-worker, Henry.
Hi, Henry.
We stream together.
Okay.
So Henry makes this noise at the end of streams that are quite iconic to Xbox One and stuff like that.
Right.
If you've ever heard of a pterodactyl scream, it's somewhat along those lines. Henry, whenever you're ready, you can just...
In there?
Yeah, go ahead. That's amazing. I love that. We're using that.
Thank you.
Bye.
I will
Thank you, Henry.
give you the licensing for it. Shall we make some other noises?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are you feeling immersed? Am I taking you somewhere? Where am I taking you, Sean? It's amazing how my finger is doing that, you know?
Yeah.
That's usually how things work. Cool.
So Sea of Thieves was a little bit different from most of the games I work on. So usually you would start off with an ambience, like a wind and whatever's around. So if there's generators around and this, that and the other. But obviously with Sea of Thieves, it's the ocean. And the ocean presented us a unique problem that I've never had to solve in games before. So it's a really big system, it's really complex. I know it sounds simple, but there's lots of different things going on, and we update lots of values as the players moving through the world to get it to feel seamless. So as you walk down from the island, you can't hear the sea from about 50 metres away as we're on an island, depending how much wind and rain around. But if it's quite calm, you'll hear it from about sort of 40, 45 metres. And as you approach to it, the emitter that we're playing it from is at the ocean. As you move into the ocean, it starts to clamp onto you, and then we change the sound. As you get further from the shoreline but into the sea, we change the sound very differently. So it becomes more sort of, oceany rather than shoreliney.
Apart from the ocean, what's been the most difficult audio to really capture for Sea of Thieves?
I mean, footfalls are really tricky.
Is that like steps?
Steps,
Right.
yeah. Because it's not just footfalls, it's the whole player movement thing. So I literally jumped up and down in this spot to get the sound of a chest, like cavity jumping, right?
Oh, God.
And that's mixed in to the sound of the footfalls. So there's lots and lots of layers going into the footfalls. And if you look at our footfalls, the amount of different services we have, we've got wading, obviously, so all of that stuff, all of these things we've had to author and we've had to sort of get it working. So that's an enormous system that like almost goes unnoticed. We actually bought a swimming pool, like a 15-foot swimming pool, and dropped things in it, jumped in it, swam in it, waded in it, and we recorded all the sounds because essentially we can control the sort of sounds we want, and then if we need more of them, they sound very similar. We did chuck a person, obviously, because we needed to get a big splash.
Did someone volunteer for it, or did you just...
No, they volunteered.
Okay.
No, we didn't
Fine.
just sort of yeet them in.
Getting the player to a point where if they've played enough of this game,
Yep.
they almost don't even need a map anymore. If the wilds sound like one thing and the Devil's Roar sounds like another, I can just instinctively feel I'm there.
So we did a lot of systems where the music tells us a lot, right? So when you're coming into a different island, the first time you're in a region, you'll get the full musical sting. Probably people who've played the game know this stuff, but don't really know it. So we did this lovely system. You cross from one sea to another, and you get the full island sting. And then the next time you go to an island within that sea, it plays a sort of a lesser sting. Unless you go into a port, that will play the full thing. But the port's got different endings on the sting of the port, just to say which part of the world that you're in.
Is there a spot we can check out some more of the musical elements of the game?
Yeah, the live room right there has, I think, Robin in there already.
These instruments I definitely know. But what is that? How you doing?
How do you do?
Gorgeous. Nice to meet you.
Nice
Tell
to
me
meet you.
about this thing right here.
This is a hurdy-gurdy, and it's a kind of like a violin that you play with a crank instead of a bow. So there's your wheel, and you crank it.
Oh wow!
Round like that, and then you can change notes with ease. Or you can even go like that.
Oh.
Ready?
Ready? You start and I'll just join in.
Is that beautiful? What is that?
Oh,
this is a water phone. So this
Put
is.
this down, man.
I'm not even going to play it. I'm just going to let you play it because it's impossible to play.
How do you
wrong.
play it?
So
With that bow.
grab it there.
Okay.
And then you bow with this. So you just make sure you get plenty of pressure and just bow at anything, and you can twist that around.
And you can also move it after you've bowed it as well. It's very cool.
I don't know about this.
Go.
That's weird.
It's good, isn't it?
What do you use that for?
Well, it's kind of like, it is like the Ferry of the Damned and the...
Oh my god, yeah. Oh. It's very satisfying.
It is.
You have to not make that noise when you record it, though. That's the thing, because you want to go ooh every time,
Yeah.
but you can't.
Oh yeah.
That's the
I'd be
thing.
terrible at this job. What about something I can play with you guys? Because that sounds like that's gonna...
Well, there is a Seek the Dead is a shanty in Sea of Thieves, so you could just play along with that. We can just do some weird
All right.
kind of... Let's just go freeform.
Let's do it.
All right.
And 1, 2, 3.
Beautiful.
That's your Xbox on theme tune, right?
Thank you.
there.
Oh, I love
That's
it. They're going to love hearing that every single time we do a video.
Just need some lyrics and I think we're there. But theme tunes aside, what do we know so far about creating an immersive gaming world? Let's go through our checklist. You need a large amount of research into actual real places, taking lots of photos as you go. You need your map to contain some clear signposts and landmarks to scurry towards, but some secret choreography to encourage you to do so, and sprinkle in some visual storytelling for flavour. A wee bit of sound and music to help set the tone and make you feel like you're there using more senses. And we've got ourselves a pretty well-rounded immersion package. Little did we know, We were about to find out the ultimate way to feel immersed in a game. Rebellion invited the whole Xbox On team to have our faces immortalized into their database of faces. We rocked hairnets, matching white t-shirts, and loads of different expressions as all of our juicy facial data was collected.
Feel free to relax, I'm just going to review all the pictures.
I am relaxed.
And then we sat down with Holly, who revealed the final result.
I'll give you some little bits of directions to point you in the right way.
Yeah, please. So we're going to see my face. I'm so ready. Is that me there? Who's that?
I'm actually not sure.
Oh, God, they're gone.
Oh, I'm so immersed already. I'm scared.
Oh, wow.
Right, do you see that bunker-style door there?
Yes.
And it says Wyndham Village. If you'd like to proceed through the doors.
Okay, under control of protocol.
Now, there might be someone you recognise just on the other side of this door.
Oh my gosh!
No
I can
way.
tell it's him already. Oh, you're stopping us!
No way.
Oh my goodness!
Why?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Oh my God, Sam doesn't take no prisoners.
Sorry, I just wanted to look at his face.
I thought about this process and thought about what might happen. I did not expect that to happen.
That's crazy.
Okay, let's hope he doesn't remember that.
I'll try that again. I'll just go near him. You're new round here, eh?
God.
You're free to enter. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's Sam! That's crazy!
Oh my
You
God.
just did it.
No way.
Oh, his hair is just like that as well.
Yeah, grey.
I can see him cosplaying in the future, can you?
Yeah.
That's himself.
That's so cool, man.
He's quite handsome, isn't he?
Like a policeman.
Oh my God.
Or a
Even
protocol
the
guy.
like the movement of his mouth and
Yeah, he
the
does do that.
Yeah.
He really captured that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
Little
does that. He loves
smirk.
doing that.
All right. I am even more nervous to see myself.
I can't wait.
We're not going to see you today, are we, Henry? Not yet.
Oh, what? Oh,
Sorry, Henry.
it's fine. I must just be really important, you know.
Right.
Main character energy.
Okay. I'm really loving this environment already. I can see exactly what everyone's spoken about. Name as Thieves, I'm sure, that they scanned. All those photos really came into play here.
I've never appreciated a rock more.
Don't
Taking 1,000 taking 1,000 photos of a rock.
So-
This is why you do it, because it is just so gorgeous.
Is that me?
I believe it.
Am I the old lady?
No.
Oh, okay. Just checking. Just testing.
That's not you either.
Okay.
But that's also so cool. Like, yeah, I felt like I believed this village. Okay, it's a bit weird that it's got like all these checkpoints, and then we turn a corner and a robot appears out of nowhere, but it still feels right.
Yeah.
As well, like it feels like it's part of this world. It's all rusty. It's all like, I don't know. There's some intrigue there, and I want to learn more about it. But it doesn't feel out of place. It just feels like what's going on here?
It feels super tangible as well, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I'm feeling at the moment. I've been near this house and I've seen plants and colours that look like this. And actually the sky, you guys have done a really good.
Gorgeous. Oh my God.
You see the church? If you could head towards it.
Did you fit me in the
You're
church?
pious.
I am so pious. Oh my gosh, did you actually? I'm gonna cry.
You're in a grave.
Just go up to the front door, just near it.
You're dead. Sorry. You're dead in this.
And here lies Bex.
Right, if you just wander towards.
Oh, the stained glass
Sorry, that's
hitting the
gorgeous.
walls. That's a nice touch.
That's a nice touch.
That's gorgeous.
Very pretty.
Very pretty. So
And-
detailed. But like these little details I really appreciate because like for anyone that's been to a church, you notice these kind of things around and they're just you take them for granted. Like that seat, I've sat on a seat exactly like that before. And I know how it feels and how it should look. And I believe it.
My heart is actually going. I'm really scared for this for no reason now.
I'll leave you.
If you're a nun, I'm going to flip my lid.
I'm gonna flip out as well. Is it these lot? Her. Is that her? You're laughing. Am I dead? Is that me? Is that me?
Oh, no way.
Do I look like that? Hello? Pamela Shaw! She's
Take
got
down.
a name!
Take down. Take down.
I'm not killing myself
Okay.
the first time I see her.
Oh my
Oh my gosh, it's my face!
No way! That's you!
That's so weird. Is this what an out-of-body experience feels like?
Oh my god.
I love my eyebrows. Real good job with those bad boys.
Yeah.
I look all right without makeup as well. I'm really thanks to the art team for that, the character team. You should tell me your secrets, Pamela, if that is your real name. Oh, she didn't like that.
Oh.
Classic me. Classic.
Yeah, I didn't know you scanned the personality as well.
Oh, this is so weird. Is that what you see when you look at me from the side? Ah, she's very studious. Yes, that's quite right.
That's a good book.
Sorry, guys, you can just leave me. Oh, she looked into my soul there. Holly, I don't think I should be doing this. This is crazy.
I mean, talk about immersion. You are literally in the game now.
I think we went too close to the sun, Henry. I didn't expect it to come to this.
So cool.
Well, I like her outfit though.
Yeah. Yes!
Oh no!
Yes!
Yes!
Oh my god!
I'm actually speechless.
Bex!
Why are you just looking at me?
Why? Why is the other guy chill with this?
He ran.
Well,
Pamela.
there can only be one Bex, I guess.
Yeah.
You had bread, alcohol, more alcohol.
The sickle.
You nailed it. It's great. Man, that was so enlightening. I thought I knew loads about developing a game and making it immersive, but turns out I know nothing at all.
Well, yeah, but you do know a little bit more. I mean, I can't believe how much actually goes into it from so many different parts and teams and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like photogrammetry. Can you imagine taking 1,000 pictures of a rock just to get that level of detail?
You've not seen my camera roll, to be fair.
True. I mean, what else did you guys get up to at the Chinese room?
Oh my gosh, they were so nice to talk to. They did have to sit through some of my gameplay, but it was okay. And they taught me all about, like, John was speaking about how much of an imprint each different person has, which was really fun. Yeah. But to be fair, one of my favourite things was getting hands-on with Sean just then in the sound booth. That was really good.
Rare have this whole like guiding philosophy of using this thing called the Wheel of Emotions, which they thought this is what we use to help make sure every activity involves a player, gives them like a new path to go on and get immersed in that activity, no matter what it is they're doing. So clever.
I felt pretty immersed right at the end, seeing my face in a video game. I can't really get much more in it than that.
It's trippy.
I'll take that home with me for a while. But I mean, what about you guys? Thank you so much for watching. Did you have a really good time watching? What was your favorite part? And maybe what do you want to see next from us as well?
Yeah, drop it in the comments because we always love the support, but we're also on a quest to find out even more on the next episode of The Method. So drop those ideas down below, see what we can do. Yeah. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Where do you want to go now?
Pub?
That was great, Henry, wasn't it?
Good fun. Learned a lot. You had fun at Brighton. Looked cool.
It was great.
Do we need to take the table back?
What?
I think so. All right. Bend with your knees. Yeah, I know. Got a Game Pass video to make though.